high triglycerides, high cholesterol, liver problems, blood glucose issues, blood sugar dysregulation, weight gain, chronic pain, fibromyalgia. I'm going to talk about that on this show. The reason I'm bringing all these things together is a patient of mine called me last week, and she said on her message, I have high triglycerides. Her triglycerides are 300. I have high cholesterol. That's 250. I don't know what to do. What do I do? Can you help me? And I said, well, I'll do my best. So that's what we started with. The question is, what do we do? In this case, if you look at here, that's her numbers and that's her question. So I got into it. I said one thing after another, and I asked her questions. Are you doing this? No. Are you doing this? No. So let's go through this phone call, and I want to tell you what I told her. So the first thing I said, just really simple, I said, are you drinking enough water? She said, no. I said, fine. Let's change that. We need to up your water intake. So what I told her was, let's get your water to half of your body weight in ounces per day. If you want some details on that, go to my YouTube page, watch my water rules video, okay? And that will get into exactly what you should be doing. And I told her the regimen is you want to start your day with water. So I start my day with water, and I have to have this water regimen because just like everybody else, I can fall behind with water intake. So what I told her was I start with water in the morning, 12 ounces. I have a glass. I know it's 12 ounces because I measured it. So I sip that while I'm doing my spine stretches. I personally like to squeeze in some lemon or fresh lime, and that's a good detoxifier of the body. And no, lemon or lime does not add to acid in your body. It actually turns to an alkaline or basic effect when it's digested. So that's pretty cool. And it's a good liver cleanser. So I sip that. That's getting the first 12 ounces of water in before you even have breakfast and coffee and so forth. And then I said, are you drinking too much coffee? She said, yeah. So I said, make it down to 1 cup. Now she put me on, after we got into the conversation, she put me on speakerphone with her husband, which was great. So I'm now talking to both of them so now they can become a team. And I said the same thing, make sure you get your water intake up. Caffeinated beverages don't count. And then of course I said, your drinking should only be water. Never drink any calories. Drinking calories would be juice, soda, diet soda, those tea mixes that are powders with sugar and even fake sugar in it, that's all out. And even if they're diet, that's out. Don't drink any calories, just drink water. So I got into that. That was the first thing. Second thing is I asked her, are you eating clean? So I asked her, are you eating clean? She said, no. And she's laughing when she's doing this. We're having a good time with it, but I was on a roll. So are you eating clean? No. So I said, eat as clean as you can. Eat as clean as you can tolerate in your diet and enjoy it, right? And feel like you're not suffering, because everybody can eat a healthy diet for a little while, but if it's too strict, you won't stay with it. And that's why most diets die, right? So I'm talking about steering the ship in the right direction regarding nutrition. So then I talked about a couple of things that Jack LaLanne taught us decades ago, many decades ago. First thing that I said is stop eating things that taste good and only eat things that taste bad. And that got a good laugh, of course. Then I said, Jack LaLanne, if it tastes good, spit it out. And if man made it, don't eat it. In other words, try to limit the processed foods as best you can. Eat real food. Eat food, real food. And then I also said that the key, the game, the challenge of every meal is to eat as many vegetables as you possibly can. So your meal plate should actually be 2/3 vegetables, 1/3 protein and starch, right? Lots and lots of vegetables at every meal. Okay? And I told her this is going to start the process of detoxifying your liver. So when we see triglycerides that are high, that means that the liver is cranking out a bunch of triglycerides. Do you follow? And the triglycerides are in response to a whole deal here. So when you have the blood sugar dysregulation cascade, right? You're eating foods that aren't working for you, eating foods that are shooting up your blood sugar. That's kind of step 1. Let's say that we're not exercising to burn off that fuel. That's just going to back up that system a little bit more. The longer that your blood sugar is out of regulation, then your insulin that's being produced by your pancreas is grabbing onto that sugar and trying to push it into the cells. Eventually the cells say, I'm full, I've had enough, my gas tank is full. but the insulin is still knocking, knock, knock, knock. It says, but I have some blood sugar out here. I need it to go somewhere, and I need to go into you. And the cells say, no, 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 as I told you, I'm full, the door is locked. Now the insulin is having trouble getting in. That's called insulin resistance, and that's the second part of this. You follow? Okay. Now in her case, when we looked at her blood work, she didn't have any insulin issues at that moment. And if I remember correctly, her blood sugar was actually okay. I think it was a little high. So it was a little high. So it was, again, indications of this. Now, when the system backs up, the liver says, I need to store as much glycogen as I possibly can. And when it starts getting spilled over, again, because we're eating junk foods that increase our blood sugar and we're not exercising, then the liver starts cranking out triglycerides. So that's when the triglycerides rise. That's the next step in this cascade, right? And then the liver is the centers of protein metabolism. The liver is the center of your carbohydrate metabolism, and the liver is the center of your fat metabolism. All the macronutrients, right? Protein, fat, carbohydrate is all metabolized by your liver. Well, your liver is also the processor of cholesterol. So when you start beating up your liver with all this stuff that's going on, it cannot regulate cholesterol as well. So now the cholesterol conversion into bile and getting excreted by the body, that backs up. So then you get cholesterol that backs up in the blood, and another symptom of that is your cholesterol raises. You see? So everything points back to this blood sugar dysregulation, which then causes this thing called liver congestion, and then you see liver numbers rise. And if they rise long enough, then you'll even see the liver enzymes start to get skewed out of control. And that means that this liver congestion has been going on for a long time, and the liver's really freaking out. So what we're doing with this plan for her is we're trying to have her decrease the stress on the liver, start re-regulating her blood sugar to get these things down, and then the liver is going to stop cranking out these triglycerides and start taking care of that cholesterol. And by the way, me personally, I'm not too worried about a cholesterol at 250. I'm not, and I tell people that. I may be wrong, that's not medical advice, but that isn't the thing that says, oh my gosh, let's do something to get that 250 number down. Now, what was more concerning to me was the triglycerides, because that's indicating that that liver is really stressed and cranking this stuff out. So if it tastes like, back to the nutrition, if it tastes like dirt, eat it. The game to play is eat as many vegetables as you can at every meal, specifically organic. I would buy organic vegetables if possible in almost all cases. Don't eat processed foods. We're all addicted. We're all addicted to processed foods. Try this, and I've actually said this to a lot of people. Eat one chip out of a bag and then put the bag away till tomorrow. You can't do it. Eat one Brussels sprout and put the container away till tomorrow. You can do that. Processed food companies know that we are addicted to chips, crackers, candy, and snacks. We're not addicted to Brussels sprouts and broccoli. You see? So when you get away from processed foods, we're getting away from the things that keep us addicted. And that's why these processed food companies, more about that in just a moment, are some of the richest companies in the world. So we know that the processed food companies are doing really well because when we watch the Super Bowl, what do we see for ads? We see ads for processed foods. Do we see ads from the Brussels Sprouts Consortium of America, sponsoring a 1-minute ad about the wonderful Brussels sprouts in America? You don't see that. Processed food companies are doing really well, and soda and sport drinks and so forth. So this was interesting to come across this. When I was preparing for you, I came across this article about 10 companies. And this was written by Kate Taylor on September 28th of 2016 off this website, businessinsider.com, businessinsider.com. So Kate Taylor reported this. This was the title. These 10 companies control everything you buy. Only 10 companies control almost every large food and beverage brand in the world. Nestle, PepsiCo, Coca-Cola, Unilever, Danone, General Mills, Kellogg's, Mars, Associated British Foods, and Mondelez. 10 companies. Each employ thousands and make billions of dollars in revenue each year. So that's interesting when you think about that. We realize that 10 companies are the ones that are popping out these foods that we literally are becoming addicted to, that run down this train and start this blood sugar dysregulation that I talked about, increasing blood glucose, cranking up your insulin. Insulin can't get into cells, everything backs up, starting to stress out your liver. Liver cranks out triglycerides. Liver can't control cholesterol, high density cholesterol, low density lipoproteins, and so forth. All of that backs up, and then we start to see it on blood tests. But usually this is a cascade that happens over time. One thing that you need to know is this cascade can now happen in young children. And that's why we have an epidemic of obese babies and young children and teenagers, right? Because of this whole thing that we're talking about. Well, then I moved on to exercise. So I asked her, are you exercising? She said, no, and she laughs, and her husband laughs. I said, okay, well, exercise. I said, you need to exercise every day, every day. And I thought about that. I said, I think, wait a minute, that's too strict. Too strict. Now, initially I said you need to exercise 20 minutes every day, and I'm serious about that. 20 minutes is all it takes. 20 minutes. I think everybody can do that. We've got to watch 20 minutes less TV and then get out and exercise and do something, right? Or you can do an inside exercise routine while you're watching TV, so you don't want to miss that show or whatever it is, particularly my show. So 20 minutes every day, and then I said, you know what, I'm going to let you off the hook. I'm going to not make this so stressful for you. Only exercise on the days that you eat. That's it. Just exercise on the days that you eat. Other days are off. You don't have to exercise. You get a pass on that. Okay? So don't exercise every day, just on the days that you eat. 20 minutes can get the job done. And when I tell that to people, even to my patients now that are coming in to see me, I say, just 20 minutes. Can you do 20 minutes? They're like, oh yeah. Because everybody's thinking we need that 1 hour with the personal trainer, boot camp, classes, spin, this, Zumba, Pilates, and all of those things are wonderful. But if you're not going to go regularly to that, don't. If you love those classes, maybe you'll go 3 days a week, but the other 4 days a week, you need to do 20 minutes of exercise every day. Only exercise on the days that you eat. So then we moved on to next section. We talked about stress. I said, are you living in a beautiful, blissful state, like you're in the garden every day, and nothing is bothering you, and all you have is smiles and fulfillment and gratitude every day? Is that the case? And now we're all laughing at this point. And she said, no. I said, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to change stress. The first thing that I say is, let's change the word stress. Let's scratch that out. And we're going to replace that with 2 words. I like these words. Pressure and challenge. All of us have pressure and challenge every day. So we need to understand that we respond to pressure and challenge. What's interesting about that is some pressure and some challenge is negative, right? We have things that are required of us. Somebody cuts us off in the car, we get fired, whatever it might be. Some of these things are difficult to handle, but they're only pressures and challenges, and they're also opportunities, right? So we're scratching the word stress, so I made that suggestion. Then I came up with a great idea. I said, you're going to, now it's in the holiday season, we're recording this in December. I said, you're going to go outside, and you're going to hang this big, huge sign from your house. And this sign is going to read, the Bliss Center. Right across the front of your house, the Bliss Center, okay? Now she's really laughing, right? And I said, here are the rules. If somebody walks in and they're less than blissful, they're going to get electric shocks and be removed from the premises immediately. And she loved that. She thought that was great. I said, if anybody is grumpy pants, they're immediately kicked out of the tribe. Just kick them out. That's it. That's the end of that. And she's laughing, her husband is laughing. It's really great. But I started to actually tell them, hey, look, we're going to change how we operate things around in our little castle here. Things are going to be different. Why not? Start that process. So the 2 of them are on board. They're running the show. They've got kids and grandkids running around. Let's change that. So I called this the Bliss Center, and I said, a big, huge sign. Go ahead and do it. Go ahead and do it. Why not? If we all did it, things would be a lot better. But dealing with challenges and pressures in a way, and of course I can't get into it in this show, but remember that on my YouTube page that I have videos on that. And I gave you lots of references and resources and YouTube pages and books and people to listen to and so forth on handling how to think, how to control your brain, control your thoughts, and how to have better strategies of handling that pressure and challenge that happens in our life. And then I asked her, are you sleeping regularly? Are you going to bed early enough and getting regular rest every night? And she laughed again and said, no. I said, good. Okay, so We need to start sleeping. And then I gave some parameters on sleep. I said, here's the first thing. No electronics in the bedroom. If you have a TV in the bedroom, open the window, throw it outside, close the window. That's what you're going to do with your TV. And she started laughing again. I said, get the computer out of there. Simon Sinek made a recommendation. He said, don't charge your cell phone in the bedroom. Charge it in the living room. Because what's going to happen? Okay? Now, this might not work for people that are going to receive emergency calls and get that. Be reasonable, be reasonable. But if you charge it in the living room, let's say you have to get up in the middle of the night and go to the bathroom or whatever, and then you come back, you're not going to check it. Okay? And if it buzzes and beeps and lights up and spins around and whatever the smartphones do now, if they're doing that, it's going to be out in the living room. Also, it's also better to shut it off if you can. And that's a good idea. Get the electronics out of the bedroom, I said. Bedrooms should be for sleeping and cuddling. That's it. Okay? That's where that happens. Everything else is out. I also said try to stop using electronics right before you go to bed. Everybody's heard about this. The blue light from electronics starts to interfere with the sleep center and the circadian rhythm. When we get that blue light in, it's going to change the melatonin that's released and so forth. So we want to try to stop using our smartphones and our iPads and our computers as long of a distance as we can before we go to bed. Now, I'm guilty of that. I will raise my hand. I'm guilty of that because I get home late and then I have to do a little computer work sometimes. But what I do is at least I use blue blocker glasses. Very handsome things. So I use these blue blocker glasses, which hopefully helps that. And I would suggest the same if you have to do some work close to bedtime. But particularly for kids, they need to get used to not having the cell phones and bringing them to bed with them. That's just going to keep them up. What many parents are doing now, and I'll talk about this on another show, is many parents are having the kids turn in their cell phones to the parent before they go to bed. Great idea. Particularly if your kids are younger, set them up with the parameters. Okay, we're going to buy you a smartphone, but, and then you have the written contract before they even get it. So they're used to it. Trying to change that after the fact gets a little bit difficult. That's about sleep. And then I asked her, now this is a patient of mine, I said, are you under regular wellness maintenance chiropractic care? And of course we all laughed again. She said, no. I said, okay, well we need to take care of the spine and the nervous system. That's very important to keep this machine working. So let's get you on at least the wellness schedule once a month is what a lot of people are under. And then I see we need to start paying attention to posture a little bit more. We need to be doing our spine exercises every day. I said, when you brush your teeth, stretch your spine. If you're brushing your teeth, stretch your spine. So if you brush your teeth in the morning, stretch your spine. At night, brushing your teeth, stretch your spine again. Takes 2 minutes. That will start the process of making your nervous system work better by stimulating the spine, firing the brain. Brain works to the organs better. Health gets better. Liver gets better, and so forth. Okay? Take care of your spine. And I also say take care of your spine like your cars. Cars running great, you get an oil change. Cars running great, you get a tune-up. Teeth feel great, you get a cleaning. Teeth feel great, you brush them and floss them every day. Same thing with your spine. Spine feels great, you're doing your exercises. Spine feels great, you go to the chiropractor for a wellness chiropractic adjustment. So I said, that's how you need to do that. Treat it like you would your cars and your teeth. And then we started talking about supplements. Okay? Now the thing with supplements is, if you had asked me 20 years ago, do you need to have supplements? I would have said, no way, eat clean, you're fine. Food has everything that it needs to, and that's very much true, except for there's now something called nutrition inflation. Nutrition inflation suggests that an apple 50 years ago has the nutrition of 3 apples today. It's very difficult to get all the nutrition that we need unless you have a super clean diet. Now we're dealing with assaults from other aspects. So now we're dealing with Monsanto and Roundup and GMO seeds and pesticides and herbicides, and now we have monocrops, which means crops are grown on the same piece of land every year. You don't do it that way, it's going to suck out the nutrients depleting in the soils, topsoil erosion, you can look into that. It goes on and on and on. So we're being assaulted by all these different things, plus all of the environmental carcinogens and contaminants and so on and so forth. Sorry about all that, but anyways, you want to ramp up the body a little bit. And I've done shows and supplements, and it's on my website, things that we should be taking like omega-3 fish oil, antioxidants, vitamin D, probiotics, CoQ10, N-acetylcysteine for the liver, by the way, CoQ10 for the liver, acetyl-L-carnitine for your mitochondria, and on it goes. So I said, you can take some of these supplements to give us a helping hand with the foods that we're taking. So I made that suggestion about supplements adding into the clean diet to help this whole blood sugar dysregulation. So then I went into all of this, and at the end, I said, this is how you get your blood sugar under control, which will decrease the insulin resistance, making your cells a lot happier. It will stop the cascading amounts of pressure in your liver. Your liver will start to heal and get happier, and this isn't going to change overnight, but your liver will start getting happier, cranking out fewer triglycerides. The triglyceride number will come down. The cholesterol will start to be regulated better, and so forth. So, and again, I'm not worried about the 250 cholesterol, but I'm much more concerned about the triglycerides in her case. And then I told her, what is the alternative? The alternative is if you don't do these things, you end up in an early pine box. Yeah, and she said, yeah, that's right. Okay, so I said, you know, an early pine box isn't all that bad because when you're there, you won't have any pain and suffering, right? But I said it's much, much worse than that. If this cascade is allowed to continue, often what happens is we suffer a lot, 10 or 20 or even 30 years before the early pine box. And I says, that's a terrible thing because you have a terrible quality of life, you're really unhappy, you can't do the things that you want, you're not having a fulfilling, satisfying life, you can't help other people like you want to, you can't be the parent that you want to be to your children and your grandchildren, and all of that suffering. Now you end up being a burden on other people. The number one reason that anybody goes bankrupt in this country is because of medical bills. 95% of heart disease and cancer is avoidable by our lifestyle changes, which is what I just covered. You see? So I just stacked it on, called stacking. I stacked all these things on. I said, this is why you need to change. So you don't do all that suffering and make other people suffer around you. It's like, whoa, yeah, that's absolutely correct. Do you follow? That's the alternative, is an early pine box. So in wrapping up this call, when I talked to her, having the triglycerides and cholesterol, those were only numbers. My suggestion to her was, this is all backing down to blood sugar dysregulation. And that comes from chronic stress, that comes from eating the wrong things, not eating the right things, that comes from lacks of exercise, not getting enough sleep, not taking care of the spine, not drinking enough water. And then I just had a patient this week bring in his blood test results. He said, Dr. Fuller, could you take a look at this? And I said, I will absolutely do that. Took a quick glance, ran it right down. One number popped out. His glucose was a little high. Everything else looked pretty good. So his fasting insulin was good. His triglycerides were good. His cholesterol was good. Liver enzymes were not up. So he was on the first step. Remember I talked about that cascade? He was on the first step of that. So what I did is I gave him a very short speech. Very, very short. It was under a minute. And I said, well, here's what happens. Too much glucose, bigger insulin response. Insulin wants to drive it into the cells. The cells say, no, I'm full. It's like you fill up the gas tank in your car and you keep on trying to put in 14 gallons in a 12-gallon tank. It spills and makes a big mess. That's what's happening in your body right now. Body doesn't know how to deal with this. Insulin is trying to put it somewhere. It throws it into the liver. It's now causing some insulin resistance. And I said, if this train continues, then I got into the insulin resistance, liver stress, triglycerides, cholesterol, liver enzymes, and then diabetes. And then diabetes and medications, and they start cutting off limbs. Okay? So I went into that whole thing and I said, you are very fortunate. You're just at the early step one. You can completely turn this train around. I said this to both of them, but I said that to my patient this week. You only have that first sign. You don't want that cascade to follow, do you? He says, no. I said, you need to straighten this out now with this program. I'm Dr. Scott Fuller. Please join me again.
Thank you.